This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Looking forward to kicking off 2022 with my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski, here today to break down the Orange Bowl. Who had the better season, Michigan or Michigan State? What does this mean going forward? Is Jim Harbaugh going to be the guy in 2022? The rumors have started. Not even a week after the Orange Bowl, the rumors have started to build regarding Harbaugh's future. So I love that. Love to break it all down. In the second half of the podcast, we'll look to the Lions and what they got going on in their finale against the Packers. Going to be really tough because the Packers are probably going to rest a bunch of people and the Lions are just playing out the string. So we'll push that to the back, figure out a couple things as we hit some important Lions topics. Because I have to set the scene. What was it like for you to experience Michigan in the college football playoff? Because from my vantage point, watching that, I was totally surprised that Michigan did not really adapt to the stage that they were on. And for me to see them get their ass kicked like that, it kind of brought back the bad memories of Michigan State playing Alabama, going out to, the college football playoff, but not really competing. And I think right away, I had told you right from the jump, I said, you know what, in this game, right from the beginning, Michigan not getting the ball was fucked up. I thought they made a mistake in regards to deferring, and right away, Georgia takes the ball, and everybody saw it. They looked bigger, stronger, faster, and unfortunately, stark reminder that while you're Big Ten good, you're regionally relevant when it comes to the big stage, the top of the top, the creme de la creme. Michigan ain't there. So I'm just curious, how fast did you get mad? Did you kind of just wither away in regards to just, wow, this is Georgia, this is a different class of football? Were you pissed? I'm so fascinated to get your take on it because I know the excitement was there. Everybody that was a Michigan fan really believed, and a lot of people at SIO Lions believed that Michigan was going to compete and maybe even win the game.
I mean, I think to describe it in a word, I was frustrated with everything from Jump Street. I think you summed it up best. The inability of Michigan to adapt what they were going to do. Basically, Michigan came out and they said, look, this is how we play. This is what we do. They had like zero tricks in the bag. I honestly, going into this game, I had this thought. I was like, well, if I was Michigan, how would I throw a bit of a curveball at Georgia, right? Like you said, Michigan is regionally relevant. You are good enough to win the Big Ten, but when you get on that big stage, do you have your best athletes on the field, and are they making big plays at big moments? And in this game, nobody showed up. Nobody, from the coaching staff all the way on down to the players. Nobody showed up. And going into this game, I was like, you've got to be able to kind of muddy the water a little bit. Like, Georgia can watch your games, and they know what you're going to do. They know you're going to run the ball. They know you're going to try to get Aiden Hutchinson and Ajabo to put pressure on the quarterback. They know that Cade McNamara is a little bit limited when passing the ball. I was really surprised that they didn't install more for J.J. McCarthy. I was surprised that J.J. McCarthy wasn't the guy who was starting this football game. Because if you're Georgia, you're going to plan for Cade McNamara, right? You're going to plan for them to be a run-heavy offense. If you come out with J.J. McCarthy and you're throwing the ball all over the yard, you're not prepared for that. It allows you to get that early jump. And you can rotate Cade back in and get him into the fold and get him into the mix. But I think going into this game, you needed to throw something at the wall to see if it would stick and see if it would kind of mess with Georgia a little bit. Instead, it's like you said, Georgia's bigger, stronger, faster, and basically took you out to the woodshed and just whipped your ass. Michigan had no response. I was utterly frustrated by this performance, and I'll be honest with you. By the time the fourth quarter rolled around, I stopped watching. I checked out. I started watching different things for New Year's Eve. And like, can we talk about this too? You've got to move this game off of New Year's Eve. And if you're going to do it, you can't have this running into primetime New Year's Eve events, right? Like, there's just too much going on. There was so much better TV than what I was watching with this Michigan performance that it just, like, the game wasn't even relevant after the third quarter for me. You know, at that point, Michigan was only able to muster 3 points. To that point, they were trying to dig themselves out of a hole, and they couldn't. And look, there was a lot on Twitter. There was a lot made in the media about Aiden Hutchinson making a business decision to not show up in this game. And I think you led the way with a lot of it. And look, I think you were wrong, okay? I think what you've seen was you have a guy who was just outclassed, outmatched. And if you looked at what Georgia did, Kirby Smart's a good football coach. He rolled the pocket. He basically showed one type of offensive scheme, and then he adjusted. So it looks like it's going to be a run or a pass to Aiden Hutchinson's side. Instead, he ends up rolling the pocket away from him. And next thing you know, you've got a guy coming back and basically blocking him. So it totally negated him, made him irrelevant in this game. And look, that's what good coaching does. This goes back to Jim Harbaugh. You know, like, I don't think Jim Harbaugh did a good enough job getting these guys ready. These guys looked flat. And it did remind me of Michigan State playing Alabama. And it's one of those things where it got me to thinking, would you prefer to be a team that is, like you said, regionally relevant, right? You consistently get to the college football playoff, but you get embarrassed like Michigan did. You get embarrassed like Michigan State has in the past. Or would you rather get there and win it one time, but you have zero guarantees that you'll ever get back to the Final Four ever again? What would you prefer?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's kind of been that way a little bit, but not exactly true to form with Michigan State basketball. They won it back in 2000. Now, they've gotten back to the Final Four, but they haven't, and they've gotten back to the title game. But
I'm talking college football playoff. I'm not talking basketball. Exactly. I'm talking football.
No, absolutely. I understand what you're saying. Michigan State, but though hasn't won a national title in 22 years with a lot of good teams. But in my opinion, the feeling you get of winning it all trumps it all. So you take the win and you fall by the wayside. You know, being Georgia is really challenging because you get your hopes up and then you fail. You get your hopes up and then you fail. If they lose to Alabama this upcoming Monday, it's going to disappoint everybody because Kirby Smart will be then labeled as somebody that's owned by Nick Saban. So you have to kind of go shoot your shot. And so in your story, I would take the win all day. It's just a feeling when you win a championship, and I'm a little bit older than you, so I was a little bit older when the Pistons won and the Tigers won and the championships with the Wings. I was always a little bit older than you, but you got to experience the height of winning with the Red Wings. Mm-hmm. In college football, it's totally different in that there's 4 teams at this point in time. So making it has a special meaning and it validates you. But now what Michigan struggles with is their expectation. They're portrayed as a nationally prominent football program that's led by a nationally prominent head coach. But the reality is that's not the case. And unfortunately, that's what you saw is that the speed, the size, the ability. I mean, you guys lost to a quarterback named Stetson. And this is a guy that doesn't have all.
I'm glad you brought him up. How surprised were you at his play? Because he looked really good.
I wasn't. I posted in my preview that this guy was underrated. I think that people kind of maybe didn't watch the film.
Everybody bagged on him for one bad game.
Exactly. That's what happens. And then people got to be a creature of the moment. Whereas I love watching SEC football because that's the best. So you check in with Alabama, or when you're preparing for a game, preparing to preview something, if you're going to put your name on something, you should watch it. And in my preview, I said that people are bagging on Stetson here, and he's going to do some things. I just thought that Michigan would try to adapt and do a little bit different. But they went in, and that's the situation in which their bravado failed them. They went in thinking that their stuff would be able to hold up, and it didn't. You needed to try some things. You needed to, maybe have JJ do more things. Maybe, take the ball first, get the opportunity to score and put your offense on the board, be a little bit more aggressive. You weren't going to go toe-to-toe with Georgia. And really, to be honest, me personally loved it because to see them get their tail kicked in was great. But personally, when you look at a football game, I would have loved to have seen it more to be more competitive. But I just think that with Michigan to take the next step, do you think a loss like this, I'm curious to get your answer if you would also like them to win once or just get there consistently like a Georgia and things like that. But do you think, because my mind right away when the game ended and it's 0-0-0 and the game's over, I thought, man, Michigan needs to take steps backwards, deconstruct the program, and start going toe-to-toe with these recruiting battles with Georgia and Alabama. Go out there and get 5-star speedy guys. You can't go out there on a national stage and look like you're smaller than your opponent. That's just not going to go down. You know what I mean? And it's just, for me, I said Michigan needs to take 2 years off, 3 years off even, and really commit to saying, we're going for it all. We're going to go backwards. We're going to find the right pieces to move forward, because what it looks like from recruiting and what's going on, it looks like more of the same. You're trying to compete with Ohio State, but you're not trying to win it all. And I don't see it happening with Jim Harbaugh in that manner, where in every big moment when you need to step up, you get your tail kicked in. That's not what's needed at Michigan. What Michigan needs to do is try and find any avenue to become nationally relevant on the big stage. And that might require some modifications in recruiting strategies. I don't know, though, because of the fact of how it kind of played out with Harbaugh. And I don't know how much patience he gets, how much credit he gets for this appearance. But I just think that Michigan needs to go in a direction to compete, to get back there, because getting there and getting your tail kicked in is not worth it. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's embarrassing. I would much rather them win it one time.
Yep.
They have no guarantees of ever getting back there. Like, the 97 team is so special to me. Like, anytime Charles Woodson comes on TV, I scream, "There's Chuck!" I just yell it. Like, my girlfriend knows who Charles Woodson is, and she didn't watch the 97 Michigan team win anything. So to be able to win it one time would be so incredibly special, and you get those memories for forever.
Well, technically that you won it half a time.
Yeah,
There's another team called Nebraska that owns a share of it just as well. And in my opinion, Nebraska would have went toe-to-toe and probably won a late game close against Michigan, in my opinion. My unbiased opinion, Nebraska was the real
You're totally
champ.
biased.
They got screwed by the poll system. But you got a half a title. It's not bad. I can hang your head on that. You know, you guys had a good season, something to really hang your hat on. But when you look at it now, where does Michigan go from here? I'm just so curious, because now what's set up in terms of, for us, it's so juicy. Cade versus JJ. What happens? What do you do? Because in essence, Cade got benched for the fourth quarter. JJ was in there, and by that point, you put him in garbage time. You put him in a rough spot. He wasn't going to do anything relevant. But the narrative coming out of that game is so juicy for us, in that the rivalry now kicks off in 2022. Who gets the job? Who deserves it? Does Cade stick with it? I think from what the appearances look like, you can't go away from Cade McNamara and risk really going backwards on a first-year guy, especially rolling off of what you had. You need that experience. You got some wide receivers. You got some running backs. You got Blake Corum. You got Anthony. You got the opportunity to continue roll with that offensive line. I would keep Cade McNamara and really just hope that JJ wants to stick around with the hopes of getting there in a year or two.
How many national championships have you won, even if it's a half, in recent history? Oh, okay, cool. Zero. Okay, cool.
Tuck coming,
okay, cool.
Baby. You know it's coming.
Right.
Tuck's coming.
Right.
Tuck's coming. We're going to get there.
Tuck's coming.
Tuck's coming. 3 years, baby. We're going to win it all. We're going
all right. Let's move on. Let's stay relevant here. We'll see what happens in 3 years.
Yeah.
I know, but I think you're right. I think Michigan does have to. I don't know if they have to tear everything down, but I do think they have to evolve. And I think a lot of it has to do with the university. It's not even so much the program. It's the university. You realize this because you follow all these things, but their NIL deal is trash. Like, it's garbage. When you can go to what is it? Jacksonville State, and you can get $1 million, and you can go to Michigan, and like David Ojabo can't get anything. David Ojabo had a hell of a season. He got no NIL money. Like, that's ridiculous to me. So you've got bagmen everywhere dropping off McDonald's bags stuffed with $100 bills, but here at Michigan you can't do that. You can't get on that level. If you want to compete with the big boys, this is the thing. This is the whole thing about NIL. It has basically leveled the landscape. All right? It's not like it used to be where you had Alabama and you had a ton of the SEC teams and Ohio State doing all these things behind the scenes. It's now all out in the open. It's right in front of you. The bagmen are real, and the bagmen can do whatever they want to do now, and nobody's going to get in trouble. It's okay. The playing field is level. If you're Michigan and you want to compete with Alabama, you want to compete with Georgia, you want to regularly give Ohio State a run for their money, you need to revamp your NIL program to get better recruits, because that's what it comes down to. What you were looking at. Yeah, I think some of it had to do with coaching, and yeah, I think some of it had to do with scheme, and yes, I think some of it had to do with game planning and not using your best athletes like a J.J. McCarthy. And we'll get into J.J. McCarthy or Cade, because I've got a little bit of a different take than you do on that. But you've got to get bigger, faster, better guys. You got to bring those guys in. The one thing that Mel Tucker does so well, and the one thing that has helped Michigan State out so much, is he has hit the transfer portal harder than just about anybody. He has hit that transfer portal harder than your mom used to spank your ass when you brought home an F on your report card. And Michigan doesn't do it. Michigan does. Michigan has more guys leaving through the transfer portal than they do coming in. And it's hard to keep up with talent like that you find at Michigan State, that you find at Ohio State, that you find at Alabama or Georgia, when you've got more people exiting than you've got people coming in through the transfer portal. So you've got to step that up. You've got to figure out a way to get those guys in, utilize that transfer portal, find a way to get the bagman to give them money and make it all work so it's cool with the university. Michigan has such strict NIL protocols, it makes it really hard to coach. Like, you as a coach, you're basically neutered. Now, to switch things over to JJ or Cade, I would make that switch. Like, this is what you see. Like, look, Cade is what Cade is, right? Cade is the safe choice. Cade is, he's checked down Charlie, as you call him, right? I think what you seen towards the end of that game with JJ in, he was able to extend plays. He was able to roll out. He was able to move around a little bit. He's a little bit elusive. You put him in situations going into the season, and look, they're going to have to battle it out. I think this goes right back to having a QB fight for the number one position, and whoever wins it. But I think you have to be looking towards JJ taking that spot from Cade, and if he does, if they are dead even, I think you have to go JJ purely based upon his athletic ability and his ability to get the ball downfield. I think this offense has to take that next step forward, and you have to be able to revamp it a little bit, retool it a little bit, and you've got to be able to stretch the field. You know, that's the one thing that this offense didn't do enough. And the moment that they started doing it, it opened up a massive playbook, and they were able to start putting points on the board. It allowed you to beat Ohio State. It allowed you to annihilate Iowa. It allowed you to really plant your foot and then choke people out as you were beating them on the field. The run game is special, and the run game is important. You need it. But that run game is what helps sets up that downfield pass and really helps you put points on the board and really helps you take opponents out. You know, they took out Ohio State with those downfield passes. They took out Ohio State, or they took out Iowa with those downfield passes. You didn't really see any of that in this game against Georgia. It was like they couldn't get anything going. You've got to be able to do that. And I think that's why if going into the season, you got JJ and you've got Cade. My 51% is instantly leading towards JJ to get that job. He has to obviously go win it, and he has to do it, but that's the direction I'm going because he's more explosive and he's more elusive, and he gives you more pages of a playbook than Cade does. And that might be crazy, but I don't think so.
No, I think you have a season to do it, but I think a lot of people are really happy and looking for the potential for Michigan to get 10 wins again, with potentially the biggest games being against Michigan State and Ohio State. The challenge is going to be Ohio State being on the road. And if you make the change to JJ, how's he going to handle that environment for the first time? And see, that's where maybe if you looked at it from the long picture, I know that they wanted to maximize this season with Aiden Hutchinson, but maybe for the long-term future, you might have made the wrong play because getting JJ the experience this year, maybe you got him enough. Maybe you feel like he's got enough to develop real fast with an off-season program, everything in the spring, and then having everything go down next year. But if you make that change, I think you have a risk that it's not exactly a guarantee that he transitions smoothly. So it's going to be fascinating to see. I really, really am excited. I still believe that Jim Harbaugh has now become an OG, representing himself, leaking out there that the NFL loves him And boy, oh boy, did the man cash in, because the first number he's going to look at is $9.5 million. Then he's going to start looking at the Kelly money, the Tucker money. He's going to realize, I just got to the playoff. I also got potentially a couple NFL teams. You just don't automatically see this come out, and it's like sources say that the NFL is interested in Jim Harbaugh, when you realize it's a negotiation ploy. It's something that is so good for Harbaugh. But until he does make the decision to leave, I think it's all just for the opportunity to maximize his leverage against Michigan to get, I think he probably has earned $5 and $50, minimum $10 million a year. Do your own thing, and you've established yourself. I think the goodwill that he built up this year, even though right now it's still raw, when you look back at it and you have a college football playoff appearance on your resume, that's good in college football. So I think he's got Ward bent over his knee, and he's going to start spanking that ass and being like 10, 11 million, pony up. And I think it's something, though, if he does make the decision, I think it's probably easier to take the Bears job than it would be to go to Las Vegas. That is going to be crazy to go out there to Las Vegas. The rabid fans they got there, they won't even give him 2 years. So I think that you try to maximize your stay at Michigan, and you're 58 years old. I know it's tough to recruit day in, day out, the grind to get the players, the turnover, the extreme stress that you're under. But for me, I think that this is great for Jim Harbaugh personally for him. I think the odds on he'll be there 75%. He's coming back to Michigan. Don't worry, even though you read great content at Detroit Sports Podcast and SI Alliance, I know you read the rumors and you get all up in arms, but he's coming back.
I think he's coming back too, but if I was Jim Harbaugh, I mean, you definitely use this for leverage, and I'm opposite of you. I would totally go to the Raiders. The Bears have been such a complete mess from that front office all the way on down. Bro, I go to the Raiders in a heartbeat because the Davises are just looking to give you power. They gave Gruden so much power, and they cut him such a fat check. If Gruden wasn't a complete boner jam, he'd still be there coaching. And on top of that, when Gruden was there, they kind of had things rolling. Like, let's be honest. Up until Gruden got the boot there, the Raiders had some things going, and they looked like a competent team. I would totally go to Las Vegas, but I don't think he's leaving either. I think he's staying here at Michigan. If he does go, I think he would probably go to Las Vegas. I do know the Bears hold a special place in his heart, but I just think if you look at it realistically, if you're Jim Harbaugh and you're like, where am I going to go that's going to give me the best chance to get back to a Super Bowl so I can beat my brother so he doesn't have one up on me? I think it would be the Raiders. And it's just because the front office isn't a disaster, and he would probably get all the control in the world, you know?
Now, totally objective, Michigan State had the better year, right? They ended the year with a great win. They won the bowl game. They're flexing.
Bro, you guys look like trash in that game against Pittsburgh. It's like everything you had to beat a third-string quarterback.
It's a pure outlier. When you don't have Kenneth Walker, you get more credit, not less.
Be better. They didn't have their starting quarterback, then they lost their backup quarterback. They were on their third-string quarterback, and they were giving you a run for your cookies. Come on, bro. You can't believe this. You can't. There's no way. And if you do, you are just drinking the green Kool-Aid.
We don't rank style points. We just realized that when the game was over, and that is true to MO with teams that have grit, that realize how to handle adversity, and to take the personality of their coach when there's a challenge. You rise to the occasion.
Stop it. Listen, are you hearing what is coming out of your mouth? Stop it. That is horrible. Like, dude, how can you say you're objective? And I know when you say you're objective, you're joking because you're a clown show with this. There is no way. Look, Michigan State was lucky to beat Pittsburgh, bro.
Oh, lucky to win. But I'll say this, in regards to performances, the defense held up. You took a minute to get used to the third-string quarterback, which you saw no film on. And then, obviously, when you don't have Kenneth Walker, it takes things out of things. And then, obviously, the team is not healthy. They did not come in full bore. Otherwise, they would have destroyed Pitt, and it would have been a no contest. So,
on paper, yeah, that's what it looked like. Looked like they should have had their way with Pitt. Instead, what you got a butt-clenching, nail-biting game that it took your defense to make a couple spectacular plays against a third-string quarterback.
I was happy to get the W, and I said,
for sure, you should be. You should be happy.
It was classic. I was like, you know what? Watching the game, I'm kind of into it. But yeah, beforehand, it was just kind of like, oh, whatever. That's how the bowl season went. It was kind of like, there's, the Rose Bowl was cool. But for me, the bowl season didn't take on a whole lot of meaning outside of Michigan and Michigan State. So I'm happy that Michigan State did end their year. They had 2 losses. I think they're poised to make another run next year, maybe a step back with 3 losses, as you kind of figure out how to replace.
Oh, bro, put nothing by Mel Tucker. This team's going to come out and they're going to be in competition for everything next year. You got a good coach there who's revved up and ready to win everything. So no.
I love it. Hitting that transfer portal. So they both had two losses. Michigan had the extra win. They took a bad loss, but yeah, Michigan had a good season. Michigan State ended on a good note, and now we can at least be thankful the college football playoff appears to have a finale, and I think it's going to be a real good game. But I think until Alabama gets beat, until the man gets defeated, I can't pick against Alabama. They're the shit, bro. They're sweet. Maybe the extra time will give Kirby Smart the extra motivation to kind of see what happens, but that defense of Georgia is cool. Menchie, the injury, let's see how that plays a part, but C.J. Stroud has now found his legs to be able to do some things in the offense there for Alabama. So until Alabama goes down, I can't go away from Alabama.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't care who wins this game. I'm tired of seeing Alabama. I'm pissed that Georgia beat Michigan. I think it'd be cool if Kirby Smart could beat Nick Saban for once and not fold up like a cheap card table like he always does. For real, he'll put together the greatest season ever, and he'll look like a legit head coach. And then he meets Nick Saban, and all of a sudden it's like Nick Saban's his kryptonite. I'm in lockstep with you. I think if you have to put your money on a team, put it on Alabama because he has whatever it is to beat Kirby Smart at every chance he gets. It's nuts to me.
Yes. And now to finish out the podcast, look, Lions are playing out the string. What happens really against Green Bay is going to be irrelevant. Odds are Aaron Rodgers is not going to show up because of the fact that the Green Bay's got nothing to play for. If he does, maybe a couple of dink and dunk passes, a series, a half. If that, save your money, stay home. Don't buy any tickets to see the Lions because you're going to see a bunch of B players for the Green Bay Packers. But I think the one thing we can end on a good note to start the year, a fresh year here. Yes, positivity. And that involves a wide receiver that has kind of taken strides really at a pace that has been unexpected. Amon-Ra St. Brown has been just killing it, lighting it up. And I think what I like about a guy like that is he's pissed. He's got talent, but he's pissed. 16 wide receivers were picked ahead of him, and he knows, and he's got them all listed. And one of them was on the Seahawks. And in this past week, he knew there was a player that was drafted ahead of him who did nothing. Maybe a catch, less than 10 yards, no impact, nothing. And what did Amon-Ra St. Brown do? Yeah, they got their tail kicked in, but the Lions are undermatched. Amon-Ra St. Brown is poised to earn the position of being a really reliable slot receiver that if you keep Josh Reynolds, keep Khalif Raymond, you surround them with Quintez Cephas and one healthy number one, maybe his teammate from USC and Drake London. Maybe you go out and get a big free agent, Devontae Adams or somebody else out there. Could have been Michael Gallup, but there's been a Detroit curse where if now the curse extends to if you sniff and talk about a free agent, they get hurt. So Gallup's out of the picture. You're not going to do that. I think that if you give Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff one more offensive weapon with the returning TJ Hawkinson, now you can have some hope that this offense can take strides forward next year. And I think that's good going into next year. Now, are they a playoff team? No. We all got to see what's going to happen in the draft, free agency, who's coming, who's going. It's all going to be talked about on the podcast and at SI All Lions. But I think there is reason for hope that there's going to be improvement next year. Can't do no worse than 2 or 3 wins. I think that moving forward, the culture has been set in regards to trying hard and not being a fool out there and not acting like Antonio Brown. I think the Lions are starting their journey now, officially, after Sunday, to retool this team, and I can't wait to see it. But it's good to see Amon-Ra St. Brown ball out, dude. It's good to see somebody that you draft perform in year one. Good on him, man. Good for you. You're earning your cred, and a lot of people are taking notice.
Yeah, I think he might be, when we look back on it, he might be the steal of the draft, right? He might be the guy where we're all like, whoa, like you got him in the 5th round. Holy cow. This is my concern, and this is where I'm a little bit nervous about all these accolades for him. Right now, he's doing this on a team that is really void of talent. You know, you've got DeAndre Swift, who's banged up and probably shouldn't be playing. You don't really have another wide receiver, so he's kind of the star wide receiver. Also, he's a slot wide receiver. What happens when you get a guy who can really take the top off of defense? Does he excel and do his numbers go up, or does he go backwards, or does he just kind of stagnate? What happens there? And so I'm interested in that. And you're right, like, he right now is the number one option on this offense. There is nobody else who is as explosive, as elusive, or can do a lot of the things that he can do. And what I love is that as an offense, they have really tailored this offense towards him. They found different ways to get him the ball because he is that special of a player. So if you're going to do this and you're going to be this special player, can you do it when you have other pieces around you who are demanding touches? This is the one thing that we all had concerns about with Hawkinson, right? Like, Hawkinson was supposed to be this guy who was supposed to be able to do these spectacular things and basically demand the ball, get the ball, and keep everything going. And yet, Hawkinson didn't really show that this year. Hawkinson seems like he's just a guy. Like, he's not this special player. He's not necessarily worthy of being, I think he was the 8th overall selection in that draft. He didn't show anything. He didn't show any of that this year. He's just a guy. He's a talented guy who's big, and if he's not being double covered, he'll do some things. Amon-Ra St. Brown looks like he could be a very special player, but I'm going to hold off a lot of my reservations until I can see what he can do when he's got a full arsenal of talent around him. Does he still demand the ball, and is he still able to do these things? Because if he is, he for sure might be the steal of this draft. He might be that guy that we're all looking at like, damn, Brad Holmes got it. Brad Holmes picked up the dude from that draft, and he is that special. Like, who was? I think it was Aaron. Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones was a 5th round pick. And you're just like, man, that was some value. That was a steal for Green Bay. You know what I'm saying? So if you can get a guy like that, and that's Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's going to be awesome. But I want to see what happens when he's got a guy who can stretch the field on the opposite side of him. He's got a running back who's actually healthy and can do some things. So I'm just gonna kind of put a pin in it. But man, he looks really good this year. Helped me win a championship in fantasy football. So that never happens when a Lion helps you win a championship.
Absolutely. For fantasy, man. Anybody who took advantage of Penny, I give you credit. Your dad rode that 33 points to a championship, and that's what it's all about, is to pick apart a mismatch. Everybody and their mom knew that Penny was going to get the football, and they still couldn't stop it. What a performance by him, and I'm just happy now the season's winding down. Me personally, covering it, I'm used to 16 games. I'm not down with 17. It's an extra drag. It's extra work. It's a game to cover that you're just like, nobody cares. You just are like playing out the string. You're going to see what's going to happen. 16 was perfect. You would have went 2-13-1. Call it a day. Number 2 pick. We'd be talking about grades, the draft. We would have got there faster. Could have took some time off. But they're doing the 17-game thing. They're playing Green Bay. It'll be a close loss. Probably competitive. We'll see what happens. But I'm predicting a loss. But, to wrap it up, I think the football season came and went. And Dan Campbell is true to what we thought he would be, a true, honest individual, real cat that tells it like it is. If you're good, you're good. If you're not, he'll tell you they took a step back. He understands the lingo. He's got the framework of what a head coach can do. Now you got to tighten the bolts to become a real head coach, which is make the key decisions on 4th down, get the right personnel, have your team in the right position, and find your quarterback. And when that happens, we can then fully judge it. I think he's got next year and the year after. And it's going to come on him quick. This year was a beautiful free pass, which he took advantage of. Moving forward, let's see what happens. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSGROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Anywhere that you listen to podcasts, just type in 3 words, Detroit Sports Podcast. When you hit that subscribe button, our daily content finds you. Real quick, real easy, and you can listen to our broadcast each and every day, covering all things Detroit sports. Because look forward to another great year of podcasting. I love breaking down college football for half an hour, kicking it with the Lions, and it was a good show. Sorry it had to come to an end, but our time is up. Podcasting time is over. I look forward to talking to you next week.